Shall we pray? Father, we understand in your word that ultimately you're in control of all things. Your word says the Most High rules the kingdom of men. But we also know, Lord, that you have granted the responsibility of human government to us. And Lord, that we live in a unique place where we have men and women that represent us and that represent what is best for our country. Lord, your word says that when we lack wisdom, we can ask of you. And so I pray that you would grant these guys wisdom as they deal with the decisions that will affect our city and, Lord, those that reside here. Lord, we pray for first of all, a wisdom that would want to please you, and then secondly, a wisdom that would look long-term at what would best benefit us. Lord, we know that we've gone through recent elections. We have some new school board members, and we pray, Lord, our city's affected by that. Bless it. We know, Lord, we had a tragedy last night in our city, Lord, and we pray for the family that you would comfort them, and we pray you have your hand upon this place, Lord. It's certainly a beacon of light. It's a beautiful place, Lord. We pray that it would be a place that people would look to because of the wisdom of these men and women and the decisions that they make. In Jesus' name, amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. With that, I will call the September 2nd meeting of City Council to order. Mrs. Vach, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Fletcher?
Here.
Ms. Graves?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mayor Winger?
Here. All right, preliminary matters, agenda additions, deletions. Are there any changes?
None here.
Staff has no changes.
Motion to approve? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Okay, proclamations. We have one proclamation this morning, which I shall read. Judy Cruz, are you here?
Judy Cruz is not here today, but I'm here on her behalf.
Well, you may come up then and stand at the podium. And
All these lovely ladies in orange.
whereas hunger and poverty are issues of grave concern in the United States, the state of Florida, the Treasure Coast, and the city of Vero Beach, and whereas hunger affects the health and well-being of individuals of all ages, limits people's abilities to be productive citizens, and impairs the learning of children, and whereas the city of Vero Beach is committed to taking steps to raise awareness about the need to combat hunger in every part of our city and to provide additional resources that the citizens of Vero Beach need, and whereas the city of Vero Beach is committed to working with Treasure Coast Food Bank in educating people about the role and importance of food banks in addressing hunger and raising awareness of the need to devote more resources and attention to hunger issues. And whereas thousands of individuals on the Treasure Coast and in the city of Vero Beach rely on food provided by the Treasure Coast Food Bank annually, and whereas the Treasure Coast Food Bank distributes more than 10 million pounds of food in 2013 to over 250 partners organizations, including food pantries, soup kitchens, shelters, and other community organizations. And whereas food banks across the country, including the Treasure Coast Food Bank, will host numerous events through the month of September to bring awareness and encourage involvement in efforts to end hunger in our local community. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Vero Beach does hereby recognize September 2014 as Hunger Action Month in the city of Vero Beach and calls this observation to the attention of our citizens. 10 million pounds is a lot. Tell us who you are and tell us more about it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Rhonda Blakey, and I'm the Director of Corporate Partnerships for Treasure Coast Food Bank. I truly appreciate you and the City Council issuing this proclamation because the issue of hunger is extremely important. We are the only food bank and the largest hunger relief agency in Indian River, St. Lucie, Martin, and Okeechobee counties. We currently provide food for nearly 22,000 Indian River County residents, with 7,000 of them children who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Hunger Action Month gives us an opportunity to spread awareness of this issue and to help create advocacy and awareness of the huge issue of hunger in our community. So I really appreciate you issuing this proclamation today.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If people want to help or outreach to your organization, how can they do that?
All they have to do is visit stophunger.org. That is our website, and it gives all sorts of information about volunteerism, donations, and it also talks about Hunger Action Month this month and the Great Treasure Coast Virtual Food Drive.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Well, come forward and let us give you your proclamation.
Wonderful.
Shake your hand.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
I want to tell everybody we're wearing orange today in favor to support our hunger group and the Treasure Coast Food Bank. So,
Why don't you stand in the middle?
Can we get our group up?
Certainly.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We have David Jackson, who sits on our board with Congressman Lindsay's office.
wonderful. It's always a pleasure having you.
Great. Ready?
Thank you, Reverend.
One more big one.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, just as a point, the organization ourselves will be collecting canned foods. The city clerk's office is going to help organize that through as an organization and submit that to help in the cause.
Where in the city clerk's office, Tammy? I'll bring you some rice since I'm in the rice business.
I will get all the information to council.
Okay. All right, that moves us to public comment and make these comments first. How public comment works is pretty well delineated on the agenda, but the purpose of public comment is for the public to inform City Council either about their concerns or with information. Generally speaking, we don't respond. Please direct all questions or comments to the chair, which is me. Generally speaking, no, we don't allow any debate. You can speak after any issue on the agenda, but only once at any one section. And since it's going to be November soon, no politicking. This is a non-political office. With that, I have master plan timelines to be presented by Mr. I don't know whether I can pronounce the name properly, but come forward and help me.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor, Council. For the record, my name is Vincent Burke. I am the Director of Utility Services. I'm joined by Himanshu Mehta, who is the Managing Director of the Solid Waste and Disposal District. And we are here today to give you a brief update of where we are with the Master Plan update, provide some information, and certainly would be available for any questions if they come up. And without further ado, we have about 15 or 16 slides that we'd like to go through at this time and run a couple things by you. So if you take a look at the top screen, you'll notice 3 pictures. One is our clear stream that is put out in some 5K events and some volunteer events through CURB, Keep Indian River Beautiful. Right next to that is Garby, the mascot for the Solid Waste Disposal District. You have in the middle some bins that we're looking at doing for some possible transitions from dual stream to single stream, the 35, 65, and 95 gallon. We have the middle one in front of us is the 65 gallon right now, just for visual purposes. And in the top right part of the screen is the Cell 1 expansion that was recently completed for additional material going into the landfill off of 74th and Oslo Road. So again, I'd like to thank Mr. O'Connor and Mr. Monty Falls for allowing us the opportunity and scheduling us to present this information to the council. Without further ado, we'll get started. So we're going to go through a brief timeline of the master plan, how we got to this point, the brief history of the Solid Waste Disposal District, the acronym SWID, the dual stream to single stream recycling and the possibilities that are entertaining with that, universal collection, once a week garbage collection, close 1 or more customer convenience centers, the joint county municipal franchise agreements, and last but not least, updating the interlocal agreements, the ILAs. So we're here today again to let you know where we are with Master Plan update and to kind of outline the Solid Waste Master Plan Roadshow. This is our stop number 4. We met with the City of Fellsmere, Sebastian, and the town of Indian River Shores. All had some good comments, a lot of lively input. We're going to take a lot of those comments and the input, we're going to combine those and bring that information to our Board of County Commissioners sometime in September. Today we're at the City of Vero Beach, and in 2 days from this time we're going to be finishing up with the town of Orchid. Again, we're going to compile that information. We're going to present all this to the Board of County Commissioners at the end of September. But how do we get started? Back in December 3rd of 2013, the Board of County Commissioners authorized Neil Schaefer, our consultant, to enter into a work authorization and allowed us to move forward looking at our operations, looking at our policies and procedures, and finding out how we do business and how best to increase efficiencies while reducing our costs. So what is the Solid Waste Disposal District? Well, while you read there, I'll let you know that in 1970, the Florida legislature created Chapter 70-594, which authorized the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners to construct, operate, maintain the solid waste disposal system. The ordinance in 1987 was passed that created the Dependent Special District serving all of Indian River County, where all the municipalities came together. We operate as an enterprise fund. That means we have a non-ad valorem tax that is assessed on everybody's tax notices. They should have come out in the mail in the last week and a half or so to be able to operate our fund and cover our expenses. We are governed by the Solid Waste Disposal District Board, which is currently the Board of County Commissioners. It provides Class 1 landfill, yard waste processing, residential curbside recycling collection. We oversee the franchise haulers and the unincorporated parts of the county, the processing of recyclable materials, the 5 customer convenience centers, the HH&W, the household hazardous waste, and the used oil collection, and miscellaneous special events and illegal dumping collection throughout the county. Just a little visual here. For reference, this is the water tower on 58th and Oslo behind the Home Depot. It's about 167 feet in height. When we close the Indian River County landfill, the large landfill portion, it'll be about the same height as that water tower. And so this is just a visual reference to see how much material is actually going into landfill and the height that you can see from 95. And we're proposing to close that landfill in about 2015, 2016 after the final compaction. Then we'll put the geotextile membrane over there and close it out and submit the documents to the DEP for certification. So we also need to know that we, the county, are responsible for the regulatory compliance that occurs 30 years after that landfill space closes. So for any well monitoring or any environmental concerns, we have to have 30 years of environmental monitoring that goes along with the landfill. So it may be closed for business, but we're still operating it from a regulatory standpoint. Waste composition study. The last time we did a waste composition study was in 2000. At that time, newspaper was a lot more prevalent. Today, we have a lot more plastics and electronics that are going into the landfill, hopefully being diverted from the landfill at some of our customer convenience centers. About 30% or 29% of the material is all other waste that cannot be diverted right now. The green portion is the organic material or the material that could be diverted, other compostable material. That represents about 24% of the material. The big one on the right-hand side in blue, that's 46.5% of the material that's currently going into our landfill now that could be diverted today through the mechanisms that we have in place today. Again, 46% of that material that's going into the landfill, whether or not it's recyclable fiber, recyclable containers like the number 2 plastics that you find in the water bottles, other recyclable materials, or even yard trash. Even though INEOS is operation, we're still finding out that about 8% of the yard trash is going into landfill. And so this is a composite swath. We took a look at a lot of the geographic areas throughout the county, both from the different municipalities in the unincorporated area, and while it is a snapshot in time, this is a weighted average representing the entire county and the material that's going into the landfill. So the waste composition study is ideal to try to figure out where we have the opportunities either to increase education, to increase convenience for folks to do the right thing, and to keep some of that material from going into the landfill. And again, all that material will be broken out in the master plan when we submit that to the board. So in 2010, House Bill 7243 was passed by the Florida legislature, which applied the statewide recycling goal of 75%. And that's really why we're here today, is the state of Florida, through the DEP, has said, we would like you, the counties, to be at 75% by 2020. Well, where are we right now? We're at 37%. If you look in the bottom left-hand corner of the arrow, that's actually pretty good for a dual-stream system. But we can do better. We need to do better, and the state asks us to do better. In fact, we're supposed to be at 50% by the end of this year, January 1 of next year, and I don't think we're going to make that goal. How do we get there? Well, perhaps switching to single stream, going to universal collection, perhaps reducing the frequency of pickups to save some costs, looking at the C&D and the opportunities for the construction demolition debris that currently goes into landfill that really should be diverted, some of the organics recovery program, Again, referring back to the 24% of the material that could be diverted either through anaerobic digestion or some other processes, and enhanced recycling recovery through technology that's out there today. One thing I do want to say is that we cannot reach that 75%. We've done the waste composition study, we've done some of the metrics and some of the analysis. We cannot reach that 75% just going to single stream recycling. So that's a large step in the right direction, but we have to be able to present some options to the Board of County Commissioners and for your consideration today to look at ways that we can cohesively work together to try to reach that 75%. Dual stream to single stream recycling. Most of you are already familiar with the dual bins, the two bins that are stackable. The engineer, Monty, says that he has an ingenious way to try to create the newspaper on the bottom and then the other material on top so it doesn't blow away. I have found that in my neighborhood, when we put up the dual stream bins, there is a tendency for some of the material to actually get legs and start walking down the street. So going to a single stream would prevent that with the lid that's in place. One, it'll keep some of the water out of the place. Two, it'll increase some of the privacy concerns for folks that may want to find out what everybody else is recycling or not recycling, but also to try to keep it a little bit more tidy for some of that material to be picked up. So we want to increase the participation. We want to make it easier for folks to do that. I have a mother-in-law who's 85, and we have a little bin that she is able to roll down. Councilwoman Pilar also mentioned that she looks after 4 folks, and it's quite difficult for some of the elderly population in place to carry these bins that can become quite heavy, 5 to 10 pounds or more, depending on the recycling material. So what we have is a wheeled approach where it's done in a pivoted way, and actually a little bit easier to roll. It's not the only bin available. There's another bin in the back, which is a smaller bin at about 35 gallons, but this is the medium 64, 65 gallon. The footprint itself decreases while the 29 more gallons provides additional capacity. So what we're hoping to do is to actually allow folks the greater convenience of going to single stream. No more of this source separation, bringing 2 bins down to the curb, but to put everything into one bin and roll that down to the curbside. We have found in places like Leon County, up in Jacksonville, where they have switched, most recently down in the city of Fort Pierce with Waste Pro going to single stream, the increases have been actually quite astounding for the participation rates, and that's what we're hoping to expect here as well. So universal collection. Right now in 3 of the top 6, you'll see that there's already universal collection in the town of Indian River Shores, the city of Vero Beach, and the town of Orchid. The city of Fellsmere has a unique system where right now it's not required to have curbside collection, but if you were to build a new facility, a new house, single-family home in Fellsmere, you would be required to have garbage picked up. In the unincorporated part of the county where I currently live, down near Oslo, I personally pay to have my garbage picked up. My neighbor does not. He brings it to the transfer station, and there's about 34% of us in an incorporated area that choose to have our garbage picked up. In the city of Sebastian, they're actually quite a good number, over 50%, 53% of the folks that choose to have their material picked up. So one of the things that we're looking to do is to perhaps have universal collection in the unincorporated part of the county inside the urban service area to try to increase the economies of scale, leverage more folks to be able to have better services, and reduce the cost to some of our folks. We're also looking at perhaps going to once-a-week garbage collection. Now, there's a lot of concerns. Folks over at the town of Indian River Shores voice many concerns. One of the concerns is that if you miss a pickup, then what happens? Then you're going to miss, you're only down to once a week. So we certainly have an educational program that needs to be done. We'd have to probably phase that in a way that people can get used to this. Right now, we have the 2-1-1, which means that on Mondays and Thursdays, although Monday being the holidays, we have a scheduled makeup on Saturday, I believe, Himanshu, for recycling only, that there'll be a made-up time for recycling on this weekend. But for where I live in the unincorporated part of the county, Mondays and Thursdays are my pickup. Wednesdays is vegetation material, and recycling is on Thursday as well, the 2-1-1. If nothing changes right now, we would still have those number of trucks on the road. Obviously, there's some fuel use, CGC, and some liability and some insurance requirements that go along with having those trucks on the road. If we perhaps go to 1-1-1 to try to save some of those costs, reduce the number of trucks on the road, reduce the number of trips on the asphalt. I know there's some concerns up in Fellsmere going from the dirt roads to the asphalt roads and having the breaking apart of the asphalt to perhaps reduce some of the truck traffic on there. We can reduce some of the fuel costs and the greenhouse gas emissions. The only thing being there's concern about going to the 1-1-1 and having the educational outreach that needs to have that. So if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, the industry trend towards the 111. It's not something new, it's not something novel, it's not something that we'd be innovative in doing here, but already more than 4.13 million Florida residents currently already have once-a-week garbage collection. So the analogy that I made to the shores was that in the old days you had one big garbage can, right? It was probably the size of this, and everything just went into the garbage. We found that 46% of the material that's going into the landfill right now could be diverted from our current waste stream. But what we'd like to do is to switch that to say we want to offer you a larger recycling bin, throw everything into the single stream, and have a smaller garbage. Smaller garbage means perhaps that you don't need to have two pickups, and perhaps there could be once-a-week pickup for cost savings there as well. We took a look at our operating costs, especially related to the customer convenience centers. You notice that there's no customer convenience center located on the Barrier Island or on the mainland: Sebastian, Fellsmere, Winter Beach, Gifford, and Oslo Center. The two most recent ones, Fellsmere and Oslo, had multi-million-dollar upgrades to them. Sebastian, up in Roseland, Winter Beach, and Gifford, those are all 30 years old. We have in our CIP the need to upgrade those, but there's a cost in doing so. There's a cost in putting aside dollars based upon the revenues that we have to operate, but also dollars in our capital cost to increase those for safety and for convenience. But at the end of the day, we notice that 30% of all the revenues that we collect go towards operation of our customer convenience centers. 30%. I'll repeat that again because that's quite a large number. 30% of the dollars that we raise go to the customer convenience centers, yet less than 10% of the material that goes to the landfill from the tonnage standpoint is collected from the customer convenience centers, and less than 6% of that is recycling. So if we're trying to increase our diversion rate, we're trying to increase our amount of material that we're recycling to try to get to that 75%. Again, Indian River County hasn't said that. The Florida state has said you need to be at 75% by the year 2020. To do so, to operate the customer convenience centers will allow us to be able to operate inefficiently. So one of the things that we're looking at is perhaps reducing the number of customer convenience centers. On the other part of the screen, you'll see the green area up top, which is where waste management is, and the red area in the bottom, which is where Treasure Coast currently operates for the two franchise agreements that are currently in effect. So the municipal participation in the county franchise agreements. We had mentioned we have the two haulers, Waste Management and Treasure Coast. We need to plan for the future. We need to see the operational efficiencies that perhaps could be gained. We want to try to lower the service rates. How do we do that? Through economies of scale. We've talked to Fellsmere. They're on board with piggybacking onto the county. We've talked to the town of Indian River Shores. They have a clause that may be written in, and so the manager, Mr. Robert, is going to be putting together some recommendations for the council, because their contract, which is set to renew at the end of this year, is for another 3-year renewal. But one of the options that they may want to look at is perhaps piggybacking on with the county to see some of the economies of scale, having additional customers that could be served by maybe a franchise hauler, not only in the unincorporated part of the county, but in the shores as well. We also just are throwing out for consideration the city. I know that the city operates its own enterprise fund here as well, but that's something that the county certainly would be interested in doing if the council, if the town manager and Mr. Falls wanted to start looking at some of the economies and the economics involved, perhaps looking at having some franchise haulers serve those areas as well. Why? Because at the end of the day, we don't want to keep increasing our non-ad valorem taxes to our residents. We don't want to keep having our customer convenience centers, which cost a lot of money, that do not have a very good efficiency, but we want to increase the level of service, and we want to decrease our cost to others involved. So at the end of the day, we perhaps don't have to set aside $6 or $7 million in capital funds unnecessarily if they're not doing a good job of bringing the material, and they're actually de-promoting recycling, which is what we're trying to increase throughout the county. Strength in numbers. Right now you have a breakdown matrix. It's broken into the north and south part of the county, the level of service, what type of collection it is, and the approximate rate per month. Right now I pay about $14.85 in the southern part of the county. Tied in on the annual basis is the non-ad valorem taxes, included the rates that are charged for my voluntary subscription. And the key here is the contract term. Right now, the contract term ends at the end of September 30th, 2015. So we're working right now with Kessler Consulting to draft an RFP to look at the scope of work. And depending on what the Board of County Commissioner directs staff to do, we'll incorporate some of those guidances into the RFA, get something put out, and put something together for folks. I know that there's a lot of competition out there, and I think there's a vested interest in trying to come into Indian River County, especially from the hauling side of things, not only for the garbage, but for the recycling. To my knowledge, in Indian River County, this process has never been done. And so it's something innovative that we're doing in the Solid Waste Disposal District, and we are working to try to increase our level of service by reducing our costs. The Fellsmere, Indian River Shores, Orchid, you can see that there's varying prices depending on the types of service. Indian River Shores has some very good pricing, as well as the City of Sebastian, which recently just went out for their contract renewal, and Waste Management currently handles Sebastian. I think my mic just went off. Last but not least, we're going to update the interlocal agreements. We are working right now to craft some of the language. The interlocal agreements are over 20 years old. There's recycling numbers that really are not relevant today. There's some language in there that really needs to be omitted and pulled out. So at the county attorney to submit to the city council, I'm going to propose some language in there, let you chew on that, come back with any comments, and we're in the process of drafting that right now and sending it out to all the municipalities so that we can tighten the solid waste disposal agreement. Right now, the interlocal agreements are a little bit weak, and we think because of flow control and some of the economies of scale, we'd like to be able to combine the efforts to try to enter into a little bit stronger interagreement. Again, at the end of the day, we want to try to lower the rates of all our residents throughout the county and increase the service. Not to say that service is not good right now. I definitely want to say that Waste Management, Treasure Coast do a great job in unincorporated part of the county, as well as some of the other haulers. But certainly we're looking at the way we do business and how to increase our efficiencies in our operation. So again, I wanted to thank Mr. O'Connor and Monty for the opportunity to address you. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to allow us to come to present this information. We're certainly available for any questions or comments.
Questions or comments either by City Council or by staff as the comment. Maybe
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Yes.
Yes, good morning, and thank you very much for the presentation. I think the 75% goal of recycling in 2020 is certainly a lofty goal that we'll need a lot of public education to achieve. I noticed when you talked about Indian River Shores, you'd mentioned that, in Vero Beach, with our solid waste, we have twice a week pickup. We also have side yard pickup. If we chose to be a part of your RFP, just to get a baseline or review of our cost, could we include those special provisions?
Absolutely.
For the City of Vero Beach?
Yep. Yeah, we had reached out to Robert after our meeting and asked him to sit down at some point in the future for the specific requirements that they have. And so I think that would certainly be an option as well, to sit down with staff here to go over any specific requirements that you have, depending on the geographic area that we could write into that RFA. Yes.
Thank you. I have a question. What do you propose about organics and compostables?
Well, right now we have to be able to look at what's out there. Himanshu and I have taken visits to some of the organic processing. There's one out in Okeechobee right now, operated by Waste Management. So I think that there's some opportunities to learn what works and what doesn't work. Waste Management invested in a pretty state-of-the-art system out there, but we have to look at odor control. We have to look at the need, who would be using this material, and to do so in a way that is economical, so that we're not spending $1 to save 10 cents kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So we have some partners in the business that have, I think, a great handle on where that is. Recently, Himanshu and I went up to Atlanta, and we looked at a state-of-the-art mixed recycling facility, MRF, where they're taking all the material, source separating it at that facility, selling some of the material as commodities, but then the phase 2 is the anaerobic digester, where they can take that organic material and either have some gas production, perhaps, to capture that, or to have some organic material that could be processed either for some fertilizer, for some compost-type material that could be used to either agricultural purposes. Yep.
Okay. Further questions of council or staff, of the public?
One more, Mr. Mayor. In the county, what is your timeline for preparing this RFP, Mr. Mayor?
Right now, it's dependent on the direction that we get from the board, because certain things that we're displaying today need to be, I think, given to staff. Once we have that information, we'd like to work with our partners, Kessler Consulting, to try to put something together and hopefully have the RFA put on the street by the end of this year, or at least January of next year. So within the next 3 to 4 months, we hope to get the comments. We hope to be able to put something in, whether or not we have folks that need to join, like the city or Fellsmere, and then be able to craft specifically what's required in there with the language to protect the county and the residents if there's a missed pickup, say, and go through that RFA process, and then hopefully go get the material back, do a negotiation, have something secured several months before the contract expires, so that if it's the same franchise hauler, there'll be no interruption in service. But if there is, there'll be an education outreach. There'll be notifications done so that our residents are prepared to know what happens from 1 month to the next.
Any public comment? Seeing none, I will make. Yes, Mr. Mitchell, come forward. I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Mark Mutuer, 617 Indian Lilac Road. I just had a question for Vince as to if he could maybe update us on the status of the ethanol and electric production plant out on Nassau Road, if he knows. I haven't heard anything about it in a long time. And it ties into the bio waste and tires and everything else. Thanks.
That's a good question. The INEOS facility is back up in operation as far as I know. They had gone through a routine maintenance shutdown for this facility to clean some of their tanks. They are in the process of back online, and they're working to get back up. I don't have the specifics on the production and the numbers for the KW production or the ethanol production at this point, but I can say that we did get notice from INEOS several weeks ago that they were back in operation and going to be doing some additional ethanol production.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I would be remiss if I didn't make this comment. I've been in Vero, my family's been here a long time, and I will tell you, without qualification, the city of Vero Beach with the garbage pickup and the street pickup does a better job than the disposal. The bins are around front, often cans are around front. There's a big difference in quality of service as far as I'm concerned, so just I have to say that.
Okay.
All right, should we move on?
Thank you.
Mr. Zimmerman, if you'll come forward, please, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Happy to be with you this morning on our first workday after one of the most different holidays that we have each year. Heard a bunch of people yesterday saying, you know, this is a strange holiday, this Labor Day, and I think we're feeling that as we approach 9/11 and many of the things we maybe are not looking forward to. As I say, happy to be here with you this morning to talk with you about a recommendation, a proposal that the Tree and Beautification Commission is bringing to you, and that proposal is to create a beautification actual weekend. And we've kind of selected the second weekend in February. We kind of looked at population levels and weather and things of that sort to try and accommodate the most advantageous period of time to do something like that. There's information in the packet that was presented you about the history on this. Dr. Humiston was involved in getting this started years ago. It was suspended in 42 because of the Second World War, and then started for a while again and then stopped. We're interested in taking a little bit different approach to try and get participation. Our thought is to try and establish a weekend to accomplish this through, as I think we're all aware, a pretty extensive education campaign to make people aware. It's to try and create people's pride in their properties and how it appears and how it's maintained. So the beautification approach is both from a maintenance point of view of the yard, of the building property itself, and also the opportunity to do additional plantings on their property from a beautification, flowering, growing point of view. So it's a many-faceted approach, because with some people, the first year might be just to maybe take their property off the code enforcement watch list and clean it up. And I know a little bit about that. I serve on the county code enforcement board, and there's a lot of that necessary in the county, and I'm sure there is some in the city also. But the point being, try to create awareness, try to create pride, and get people motivated. So that's the approach. We're just in the formative stages, as you can imagine at this point, coming to you folks with the idea of interest, support, and any ideas that you have to flesh out what we're currently thinking about.
Mr. Zimmerman, what action would you like from us at this point? Just us to generally agree that? Or?
Yes, because at this point, our approach would be that it would be a city-sponsored type program, And so it would require the involvement and the approval of the City Council. There had been some discussions. I don't know if it's really feasible to, because part of this might be cleanup, to try and schedule a special refuse pickup shortly after that weekend. I don't know if we have not gone to Public Works and talked with them about what their thoughts were relative to that activity. So that has not been addressed, but that might be an approach. That would have some cost considerations attached to it. The other things primarily are just a matter of education and endorsement and a little pulpit pushing, if you will, to try and encourage people.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes. No, I think this is a fine tradition that was started back, I guess, in the 1928, I guess, looking at the article that you shared with us.
Right.
Within the city to beautify it certainly would have all my support with it. And it's a great idea. Thank you for bringing an innovative idea back forward to us.
Well, it was kind of interesting. One of our members, Chris Runge, happened to review the article, and there is a one-line sentence in there saying that they hope the editor of the article said they hoped the Tree and Beautification Commission would jump on this. Fortunately, he saw it. I did not, so he gets credit, and we thank him for that. And we're happy to bring it to you today.
Mr. Kramer, any comment from you?
It's a great idea.
Mr. Fletcher?
No comments. I support it wholeheartedly.
Ms. Graves?
I'm looking forward to it. I know other organizations have tried to work Main Street, tried to do beautification, the Garden Club. So maybe if we could get power in numbers and just get as many people in the street as possible to make it a really wonderful weekend. So just let us know what you need.
Well, we appreciate that comment. That was one of our thoughts. We know that Keep Indian River Beautiful, a number of other organizations are doing this. A lot of those projects are dedicated to identified projects where people come together to help. We thought it might be better to try and focus on people's properties and or rental property, as the case may be, to try and focus attention on that. Although this could result in neighbors deciding that a neighbor down the street needed some help, and that would be a great time to do it. And that would be one of the areas that we would encourage participation in.
Great. Thank you.
Any public comment?
Just as a comment.
Staff comment?
What I'm feeling here is the council is wholeheartedly endorsing this. And Public Works does work with the Tree and Beautification Committee. Nanette is sort of our point person there, and we will continue to do this and hopefully be able to develop a plan that will encourage this from the standpoint. And Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at one of the meetings where I attended, you talked about this was not something where you get out and clean up your neighbor's yard. This is where we're encouraging you to clean up your own yard. So we're not really putting troops out. But in fact, what we're doing is making this weekend one of those days, those couple of days that people will maintain their own personal property. And if you have an elderly person that lives down the street from you, then encourage you to sort of work as a neighborhood if that's necessary to be done.
Exactly, Jim, and we thank you for your comments. Initially, we were talking about a day, and then we kind of looked at people's work schedules and decided, you know, there are a lot of people who have to work on a Saturday or have to work on a Sunday, and maybe designating a weekend would allow for a higher level of participation. That's the reason we adopted the weekend approach. Well, we thank you for your support.
You have consensus to move forward, so
Great.
look forward to seeing you back again.
We'll come back with a fleshed out program. Thanks, folks.
Thank
have
you,
a great
Mr.
day.
Zimmerman. All right, I'll open for general public comment, and in this comment, these first two are scheduled, and they can go longer than the 3 minutes. But from this point forward, at the 3-minute point, I'll turn on the red light. So, identify yourself and your issue.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Lori Easterwood. I reside at 1845 8th Avenue, Vero Beach, Florida. I am a member of the Board of Directors of the Vero Beach Chamber of Commerce and its Economic Development Committee, and I am here today to represent the Vero Beach Chamber. One of the goals of the Vero Beach Chamber is to promote our beautiful city by the sea. One part of that goal is to promote our largest industry, which is tourism. The Vero Beach Chamber recognizes the important part that the beaches play. With the Vero Beach Chamber's help, Humiston was recently named one of the top 5 family parks in the United States. Its proximity to the ocean, its playground facilities, shops, restaurants were all a huge factor in that decision. But we feel there was one more thing that helped us win that award was our lifeguards. I'm here today to express the support of our lifeguards. We know the council and everyone listening is aware of the important role the lifeguards play in ensuring safety of our visitors. We would like to point out that the Chamber feels making families safer helps commerce, employment, tourism. I know I've seen it myself with them saving lives on the beach. I've been a branch manager and a vice president with PNC on the ocean for almost 15 years. I've helped promote tourism. I work with local businesses there. This has been a discussion ongoing for many years. We have an estimated 1 million tourists that visit our beaches each year. We know that money is tight, and we would like to thank you for all your hours of hard work through the budget meetings, and we know you strive to meet all of our city's needs. All we would like to say is that we would like to support the Vero lifeguards, and if and when there's any money available in the budget, and council believes that fully protected beaches help drive our biggest source of revenue, the economic development, that it would be a high priority. We hope that you will make fully protected beaches a reality and make restoring Vero Beach protection by lifeguards a top priority. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your
I wish I
comments.
knew to wear orange. Thank you. Have a great day.
Mr. Wilson?
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. When that light comes on, is there a choke collar or anything that goes along with this?
It's just a polite warning.
Okay. Wanted to mention, I live at 2134 18th Avenue in Vero Beach. Last week, I attended the conflict resolution meeting between the city, county, and the shores, and it certainly did not go well. In return for more meetings and more delays, we promised to negotiate in good faith, and the city promised that they would try and strive to lower rates, but finally, once and for all, admitted that rates equal to or lower than FP&L were not attainable, as long as we were members of the FMPA. The city also promised to work with towards a representative utilities authority, but I was surprised that today's agenda has no proposal. I should point out that the deadline for putting that on the ballot for November for people to vote on has either passed or is fast approaching. So you may already have missed the deadline for fulfilling that promise. I should also mention that suggestions made by the FMPA for a utilities authority have been provided to the city through its back channels for a utilities authority that does not meet the needs of the shores, but does protect the FMPA from action by any future council. At the last meeting, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Kramer, and Ms. Graves declined to give direction to the legal team, with the mayor saying that it was not his job or responsibility, or you did not seek to direct your legal representatives. Finally, at the joint meeting, the city told customers that the sale is on the back burner, that no work was being done towards a sale. And last Friday, I'm not sure whether you know or not, I'm not sure whether the public knows, the shores met and rejected the notion of any partial reductions. And with the city's position that they can never reach FP&L rates, and the shores' position that they will not accept anything except parity with FP&L, our September 6th meeting seems to be headed towards impasse. The last council meeting, I proposed a path forward that included a record for 10 things that a pro-sale council could do to advance towards a sale that an anti-sale council would not. But regardless, we are here. Just what we warned about foot dragging and special interest intervention that would happen. We are on the edge of disaster. We are out of ideas, out of allies, and out of time. We have failed to manage for substantially lower rates, failed now to address the representative utilities authority in a timely manner. We have failed to use useful legal direction. We have failed to deliver what you promised voters and ratepayers. So unfortunately, we can now add that we have failed to negotiate in good faith with our neighbors to avoid a lawsuit with the Indian River Shores. But the worst cut of all was last meeting when we were trying to find a meeting date to discuss what is the most important issue ever to face the city of Vero Beach, and the council people were too busy to make a date. The mayor, quoting the mayor, "Mr. Kramer and I have jobs," the mayor said. This is the final week of qualifying. If you're out of ideas and too busy to do the job, then perhaps you should resign and let voters elect people who do have time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Further public comment? I see none, I believe. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there changes, items you would like to pull from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item D3, and mainly for comment. I think, comment on it later, I guess. I'd just like to pull it for the mission.
That's absolutely fine. Any further changes?
And public also.
Public?
Move to adopt as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Mrs. Turner, you have the...
And item
DS.
number 3, it's an agreement to participate in the Florida Certified Local Government Program. And what does that really mean? This is part of it. This is an essential for our historical preservation grants and programs. This was a process that we started 3 years ago by restructuring the historical commission to require it to only be city residents, which is one of the things that is essential for this certification. And I just wanted to thank Anna Brady, Deborah Day, Debbie Atwell, Vicki Gould, and all the people that have worked so hard to try to get this certified local government program, the forms, the applications, and everything done to help us preserve our historic areas. And with that, I move for approval.
Second. All right. Any further comment? You seconded it. I'll call motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. It passes 5-0. All right. That'll move us to 3A1 ordinances. Mrs. Vach, this one is the second reading, is it not?
Yes, sir. This will be the final public hearing.
Okay. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of Vero Beach relating to City Council meetings, agendas, and order of business, providing for conflict and severability, providing for codification, and providing for effective date, requested by the City Clerk and City Attorney. Do either of the two of you have any comment?
This is just your public hearing on the ordinance. Unless the council has any comments or the public has any comments.
All right, I'll open it to public comment then.
Mark Mucher again. I think I want to thank you. As I read it, you kept the public comment in the beginning pretty much as it is today, and rejected pressures to drive it to the end. And so as long as my feeling's correct or my understanding is correct, I do want to thank you for that. Thank you.
Your understanding is correct. Any further public comment? Any comment by council? I'll ask for a motion then. Motion.
Move to adopt as presented.
Second. Any further comment? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. Do we need a roll call? We have to have a roll call on that.
Yes. Mr.
Thank
Fletcher?
you,
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. All right, this is a resolution which is 3B1, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, encouraging the education of youth with respect to the harmful effects of flavored tobacco products and enforcement of laws restricting the sale and use of flavored tobacco products, providing for an effective date. I really don't have any comment. It was requested by myself because it was drafted actually by the city attorney, so I'd rather
we
take the
really
floor.
just followed the lead of Sebastian and Felsmere, I believe, that had adopted this. I believe the what is the group, Tammy, the tobacco awareness people really brought this forward, I think.
What's the date for the next meeting?
This actually does not require a public hearing.
Resolution.
Yeah, you do have to open it up to public comment, but other than that, it only requires one hearing.
Yes, I'll open up to public comment. And this is a resolution. It has no binding effect in law. That's correct, is it?
It's just encouraging education of youth about the use of flavored tobacco.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have to have a roll call.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. That will move us to 4A. An ordinance, this is the first reading. This has to be read twice. Is that correct?
Right. We will
Yes.
need to hold a public hearing on September 16th.
September 16th. Thank you for that clarification. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, repealing Article 5 in Chapter 74 of the Code of the City of Vero Beach related to traffic signal violation enforcement by the use of traffic signal violation detectors, in other words, red light cameras, providing for conflict and severability, providing for an effective date requested by the city attorney. Wayne, I think you should comment, please.
This is kind of a housekeeping thing. This was an ordinance adopted some time back that was never implemented. We actually had a contract at one time with ATS out of Arizona, but then the legislature stepped in and started work on a similar legislation. So basically, when that was adopted, it kind of made our ordinance obsolete, and more recent court decisions have actually found that it's luckily probably that we didn't put this into force, because we could be paying back a bunch of money now, because some courts have found that it was not legal to do that under the state of the law at the time. So if there's no intention to implement such a program, we might as well just take it off the books, rather than the potential for someone to come along and say, oh, look at this ordinance that we should challenge because it's not proper.
All right, public comment? Council comment or a motion?
Move for this to public hearing on September the 16th.
Second. Mrs. Bach?
Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
Yes.
Mayor Winger?
Yes. Mrs. Bach?
I have no matters.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Falk, could I still ask you to address the November 7th, the change in the organizational meeting in November?
Yes, we did have to move that to, I don't have my calendar, I think it's November 15th, the 17th. The reason that we moved it a little bit later this year is because of absentee ballots having to be sent overseas. We did get a letter from Supervisor of Elections telling us that she could not certify the results until those absentee ballots had been returned. So the organizational meeting will be the 17th at 10 o'clock in the morning.
And this is something that will be happening on every even year election.
Yes, ma'am. Next year, we're back to our normal, but the year after that.
Thank you.
All right, City Attorney matters. Jim, you have an item on the agenda?
Yes, sir, I do. This is a audit services recommendation. As you know, the council appointed an audit committee. They helped us with the RFP and also the evaluation of the firms that made their submittals. I would like to thank Catherine Barton, Noah Powers, and Randy Ohl for the volunteering and placing the time that it took to go through this process, because not only did they review the RFP, but in the interviews they had the review of the proposals that were sent to us, as well as oral interviews with the respective companies. The recommendation, and it is unanimous, is Cherry Beckard. And what we are asking the council to allow is for myself or designee to go into negotiations to bring back an audit contract with that firm.
I have no problem.
Question,
Go ahead, Ms. Stern.
Yes, I'm just curious as to why we have the term of 5 years as opposed to 3. How did that?
I think it's really, and again, we can terminate at any given time, but the 5 years, I think, and Cindy is here, the continuity was one of the issues, but she can address it.
I realize, yeah, the learning curve and getting somebody on board, et cetera, but.
Actually, in putting together the RFP, we followed the Auditor General's recommended best practices for auditor selection, and one of their recommendations, as well as a GFOA recommendation, is a 5-year term. You know, there is a level of getting an auditor up to speed as they become familiar, not with obviously government accounting, but with your specific computer systems, internal controls, and things. And so they recommend a 5-year initial period, and then the renewals are kind of up to you. So,
thank you very much, Liz. Thank you. With that, it's a clear choice, and once again, I thank all our committee members that gave so much time.
Do you need a vote on this or just an indication?
Yeah, you probably should go ahead and vote on it.
Your motion, Mrs. Turner. All right. Is this a roll call or a voice vote? Voice. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you very much. We will proceed. Are there any other questions to me? Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Turner.
Yes, Mr. O'Connor. I realize we'll be going through the budget areas in detail tomorrow, but I noticed there was a revision, an addition of $231,000 in capital for railroad maintenance.
Yes, ma'am. We did receive a notice from East Coast Railroad that they are planning on doing some improvements to a couple of intersections within the city, and according to our lease agreement, we have to pay for those improvements. And they have projected that they would begin sometime in the year 2015. Oftentimes those things fall back and don't quite meet their time. I have also talked to All Aboard Florida and asked them, if they're going to do these improvements, why don't you just do them at the same time, because you're going to be meeting all those safety requirements. Rusty Roberts has assured me that he will be in touch with East Coast Railroad, Florida East Coast, and try to make that happen. And so as they're going through the process, if All Aboard Florida is approved under that EIS and they have to make those improvements, he has assured me that we would not be penalized for that contract.
Pay twice, maybe?
Okay, just a question. So this 231, this is strictly for the East Coast Railroad, or is this part of All Aboard? It's completely independent whether All Aboard gets approved or not?
Well, it is independent if All Aboard gets approved or not, except that if if All Aboard's going to make the improvements anyway, there's no reason for East Coast. It's very fuzzy as to who's on first in this process. Because,
I understand.
Florida or East Coast Railroad is the parent, I think, and then you have All Aboard Florida down here. And supposedly there is a firewall there, but East Coast Railroad, and as I told Rusty, the timing is sort of bad, because if I was a cynic, which I try not to be, you would think, well, what they're going to do is make those improvements at our cost before they get into it. He assured me that that was not the case.
Thank you very much. So we're kind of a placeholder there, and appreciate the background on it, Mr. O'Connor.
Just let me clarify this. However, if All Aboard Florida is approved, then there's a good possibility we would not have to have these expenses.
That is correct, because All Aboard Florida has to make those major improvements to those intersections. And I'm sure that East Coast, I'm not sure. I would presume that East Coast Railroad is not going to make improvements that are later going to be torn out by All Aboard Florida.
Okay. Is this type of scenario also being done in Sebastian?
Except that East Coast Railroad picks out intersections that they're going to do improvements throughout their entire system. And so we just happen to be on that list.
Just so happen to be on the list. So perhaps maybe if we supported All Aboard Florida, then this might go away, I would imagine.
That's sort of cynical, and I try not to play in that role.
Well, this is politics, and these are the kind of the game that people play. You support us and you don't get penalized. I'm not real happy to see this pop up.
And it was one of those last-minute pop-ups.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Any further questions for Mr. No, seeing none, then we'll go to city attorney matters.
The only matter I had was at their last meeting, there was a brief discussion about medical marijuana, and does the council want to take any action prior to November ballot when there may be the amendment to the Constitution allowing medical marijuana, should that pass. The materials we provided, and I have to thank Peggy Lyon in my office, gathered these materials for us. There's actually a chart there I think Gainesville may have put together, and you'll notice that some jurisdictions are taking some action, or at least looking at it. Some have adopted ordinances. Some are taking a wait-and-see attitude. We did contact the county because of our work with them on pill mills or pain clinics, and basically at this time they're not going to do anything along those lines as far as a coordinated approach. So really it's up to the council if you would like to take some action. Keep in mind that should the amendment pass, the state would obviously step in and promulgate regulations and what have you. So, but what we would approach at this point would, and really was probably about as far as we could go, would be in our zoning regulations. So if you wanted to do something, we'd get with Tim McGarry, and he would we would work with him and get a draft as far as, and with his expertise, he would need to determine what zoning districts would be most appropriate for these type things.
Now, would this work so that perhaps if you had your ordinances in place by a specific date, like we had with the vacation rentals, that if ours were stronger, which I doubt they'll be stronger, but if they were stronger than the state of Florida, ours would be grandfathered in?
Well, that's what we would hope. On the vacation rental, we did have regulations in place regarding uses. Could they have been strengthened? Sure.
Right.
But we did, and that's why we're in court, because someone disagreed with our interpretation of our own code. And I think that my view of it is the city has a pretty strong case, I think, because it's this concept of how zoning laws work. But it's the council's pleasure if you want to take this step or no.
Ms. Turner?
Yeah. I think looking at this chart, we've seen about 2/3 of the cities that were checked were discussing this or moving forward with ordinance. I would certainly like to see us move forward with an ordinance specifying dispensary locations, hours of operation, no drive-through, allowing the P&Z to impose additional conditions, parking, no site consumption, or no loitering. And I think we have to put these things in place so that if, in the event this referendum passes, we would have that opportunity to be grandfathered in. I mean, we've seen what's happened before. I think it's better to be proactive, have that stance, and protect our community to the best extent we can.
Can I ask Wayne what the reason is for the no drive-through? I mean, the only thing is this is supposed to be targeting medical patients, whether they have disabilities or cancer or other things. So
right.
Why not give them the option of not?
Haven't really looked into that.
Okay. I'm sure curious.
I noticed that also in it's very consistent, no drive-throughs, and they're all, basically you don't want marijuana farms in the city, and it's not just the dispensaries. There's other things to address too. So,
go ahead, Ms. Graham.
I would hope that we would come up with something. I mean, the grandfather issue is something that's that really puts us in a position of putting something out there that's probably more stronger than what needs to be, knowing that we could back off after the election, whether this passes or not. Mm-hmm. I would like to see something that's fairly strong in that, knowing that we really can't go back and redo it. It's better to get all the strong regulation into play here in Vero Beach, and then after we see what happens, then we can relax.
Mr. Fletcher?
I agree with Mr. Kramer wholeheartedly.
I don't think you have your guidance.
Okay, we'll get with Mr. McGarry and bring back a draft.
Thank you.
Any further matters for Wayne, please?
Well, actually, this would be for Wayne and Mr. O'Connor. Just like to see if we could get an update on the Indian River Shores mediation and on the public service action.
On the mediation, as you know, we had our first meeting. From that meeting, we decided, as the three parties involved, that's Indian River County, Indian River Shores, and ourselves, that we would break down two primary items, one that being the rates. We did say that in all reality, I don't think we could ever be at parity with Florida Power and Light based on their fuel sources and our supplier. The second was the idea of going to some type of a utility authority. We are going to devote the second meeting to the utility authority, how that would be made up when we go to a referendum, and the concept behind that, and how we get that representation in those areas. But we have dedicated 2 meetings for those 2 primary items.
So the initial concept of the second meeting of all the elected officials, the city, the Indian River Shores, and the county is no longer.
That's the second step. If as an example, the Indian River Shores comes back and says rates other than the Florida Power and Light are unacceptable, then we would have to go to step 2, which are the city councils and the county commission coming together. The step after that is when you get a mediator and the 3 elected bodies are meeting. So,
well, no, actually, the elected bodies don't meet in the mediation. Yeah, be your representative would meet with the mediator and the other representatives.
But everything would be brought back to the city councils and the county commission for approvals.
I understand there's a copy of the mediation or the transcript. Could we have a copy of that provided to the council members, please?
We have you sure? Well, it's just a recording.
But I can make
we don't have a transcript.
A transcript was delivered to Indian River Shores council members, so I believe one does
Well, they
exist.
must have had it transcribed then. So
Could that be
I'll look
delivered
into
to
that.
council, please?
Now Laura should have it.
Thank you.
Further questions? All right. That brings us to city council matters old and new. There are.
I'm sorry, we didn't get an update on my second
Oh, I'm
question
sorry.
on the Public Service Commission.
The only thing we could report on that, I believe on Friday, the county's attorney did file the response to all the responses, the response from the city of Vero Beach, and of course the other entities that filed either to intervene or to provide an amicus brief. And all the filings are done. The next anticipated action would be oral arguments before the Public Service Commission. But the step before that is the PSC staff basically will evaluate everything, and they will typically make a report and recommendation to the PSC. There's several entities have requested oral arguments, so it sounds like it's a good chance this will go to the PSC for the oral arguments.
And any idea on timing of any?
Mr. Wright seems to think probably in October you will see our oral arguments and possible decision on the different issues raised.
And Mr. Wright will be here at the next council meeting, and hopefully we'll have a more current update as to where we are. He obviously is in conversations with the various attorneys on any items, primarily the Indian River Shores. But he can sort of give you an idea of where the Public Service Commission, if they have released any information at that point.
I do want to clarify that in this public service declaratory judgment, it is not a lawsuit against the city. It's requesting a declaratory judgment from the PSC.
Yes, it's an administrative action, right.
An administrative action. Thank you.
Anything further, Ms. Stern?
No, thank you, Mayor.
All right. There being no city council matters, that brings us to individual council matters, unless there's I'm missing something. Apparently not. I have no comment. Mr. Kramer?
I've got no comments on my matters. I do want to say thank you to the Vero Beach Lifeguard Association. We did have a fundraiser early Sunday morning. I was really amazed that we had a great number of people who came out and swam out to the wreck in front of the Humston Park there, and it was a really good event. I didn't mention the aerial antics last time around. I got to mention that because we had a lot of great kids that showed up for that. It was another great event. I certainly hope that the parents participate in that again.
Mrs. Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Florida Municipal Power Association audit meeting board, all requirements, and a workshop on the Taylor swaps. The Florida Municipal Power Association increased the budget for Stanton 1 from $21 to $29 million for fuel costs. Actually, although it's an increase in their budget, it will be a greater utilization of that facility, which will reduce the megawatt hour budgeted. Actually, for us, we'll still be seeing the same megawatt charge because it'll be around $88, $89 a megawatt. And we've been averaging about that. I also like to note that I'd inquired that Stanton 1 and Stanton 2 do not have decommissioning funds established, although these projects are over 25 years old. The board approved a public comment policy requiring any large group to designate a spokesman and providing them only 5 minutes. FMPA will be performing a study of their wholesale rates, comparing them to FPL. They claim their wholesale rates are currently 15% higher, and they'll report to the September board why they're more expensive than FPL. I think this is obviously a response to the outcry in the city of Vero Beach and from our outside customers. FMPA continues to discuss gas hedging, despite a history of over $247 million lost on gas hedges. And the $450 million of the Taylor swaps must be terminated by October of 2015. The cost to FMPA could range between $100 million to a low of possibly $40 million. Vero's liability will be in the $2 to $4 million range. They are expecting direction from the board by December. That's on FMPA. Wanted to thank Congressman Posey for sending a letter requesting that the Government Audit Office review the loan application for All Aboard Florida. I still remain convinced that unless we stop that funding, that this train may keep coming. I'd like to remind everybody on Friday, September the 5th, we'll have a gallery stroll down in Main Street area. And Saturday, September 6th, we'll be commemorating our first responders run from the tunnels to the towers at 9/11. The walk will start at 7:30 at Riverside Park. It'll be about a 3.5 mile walk or run. You'll be impressed to see many of our first responders running in full gear for this commemoration.
Ms. Graves?
I just wanted to let the public become aware that 13th Avenue in front of the post office downtown is being converted to two-way traffic. It'll be finished in about 2 weeks. So be aware of that as you're traveling downtown. And I also wanted to bring to the council's attention that the Police Special Forces Unit has challenged us to the Ice Bucket Challenge. So if you don't want a bucket of cold ice, you can make a donation to the ALS Foundation.
Mr. Fletcher?
No comments.
I'll take a motion to adjourn, Mr. Fletcher.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? We're adjourned.